So I have decided to build myself a reasonably cheap e-bike. Um, I didn't build the motor control. I didn't build the motor. The battery pack that I bought is a commercial battery pack. But I didn't buy just a commercial bike. I bought just a cheap Craigslist bike, and I'm going to add these other Chinese commercial products that got pretty decent reviews to the bike, so that then I'll have an e-bike. The reason I'm doing this is because I currently commute. I drive to a park and ride a couple miles in the morning, and then I ride a bus to Tacoma. And then once I get there, then I ride a little trolley, light rail, about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from the bus stop to the office. And I figure that particularly on the way home, I can get some pretty good exercise in if I replace legs 1 and 3 of that with a bicycle. The reason I have decided to make it an e-bike by adding a motor to it rather than just a straight up bike is that on the way to the bus stop, to the park and ride in the mornings, there's a couple pretty good sized uphills that I would have to take. And I don't want to get all sweaty on the way to work. So I figure if I have a decent enough motor that I can get to the bus stop without sweating, then on the way home, I can leave the motor off and pedal and get a good workout on the way home. So that's the plan anyway. We'll see if that actually happens. I thought about buying a commercial product that, prefabbed with a warranty and all that jazz. But those are, if you get anything nice, it's pretty expensive. I'd say about 3 or 4 times what I paid here total. So if I end up doing this a lot and really liking it, then I might go for a commercial solution so that it's a little less hacky. But for now, I think this will serve my purposes pretty well. You might notice there's a big black thing on the front wheel. That's the front hub motor. I've done some work on the front handlebars. That thing on the right is the motor control, like the throttle, twist throttle and stuff. And then I had to do an interesting gear control setup on the left here. Back here over the back wheel, there's gonna be a rack that it mounts to the rear shaft, rear axle, and the seat post to give a pretty rigid place for the heavy battery pack to set. And that rack and the battery pack associated with it are in the mail. Should be here soon. But when you order cheap parts from China, you have delays. So anyway, so this motor that I bought is a front hub motor. Other varieties would be a crankshaft motor or a rear hub motor. All three are fairly common. A lot of the commercial products that you see that are like a pre-built e-bike have the crankshaft motors installed. That has several advantages. One, the motor itself gets to take advantage of the mechanical gear down from your regular bike gearing apparatus. So the motor doesn't have to push, it just has to push as hard as you would. If you gear it way down, you could go slowly up a hill, motor powered, and so on, right? So you get that advantage. Additionally, there are some jurisdictions that a straight up motorized bicycle is illegal. You can put a motor on into what they call pedal assist, so that if you are pedaling, it will help you push if you ask it to. Particularly useful when going up hills, for example. But it won't just drive. You can't just push a button and make it accelerate on its own. It's only there to help you pedal and whatnot. This part of Washington is not one of those jurisdictions. You can have there are limits to how fast the thing can go and how powerful it can be and that kind of thing. But there's no pedal assist requirement here. So I just went with the simplest attachment possible, which is the front hub motor. The rear hub motor is pretty common, but you might think it's better because it's got the weight of the rider and everything pushing down on the wheel, so you have lots of traction, so you're not going to spin out or anything. Like if you're maybe leaning back a little bit when you're going up a hill, the front wheel motors might not get real good traction and might spin out, right? So that wouldn't happen so much with the back, though you have a wheelie problem in the back, potentially. So there's pros and cons everywhere. A lot of people like the center stuff because it puts all the weight of everything right in the middle. They'll have their battery pack and motor controller right here, and then the motor here, and everything is low and centralized, keeping everything balanced and whatnot. But from ease of install, this is significantly easier than all of the others. The only complication was that the front, the little grip part of the front fork on conventional bikes is not built with any kind of rotational torque counters in mind. The guys that designed this bicycle did not expect you to attach a 1,000-watt motor to the front wheel. That was just not that, the back has to have some stuff because you're cranking and whatnot, but the front, nope, it doesn't play like that. There's no structural advantages up there. So anyway, so I attached this thing called a torque arm, which gives you like a 3 or 4 inch lever arm mechanical advantage up there, so that you get a lot of torque for not a whole lot of force, to counteract the rotational pull from the motor. So this motor, when it's trying to go forward, it's going to rotate that way, right? And so if it's pushing this way, then something's going to be pushing back that way. And in this case, that would mean that this torque arm is going to get pushed that way. I thought maybe since I put a 1,000-watt motor on this thing, that I might want to put 2 torque arms on, one on each side. But the problem is that this wire is not unattachable from the motor. It's physically soldered on inside there. And this plastic connector is too big to fit through the eye of the torque arm down here of this part. It's not open like some things are. It's an enclosed rectangular loop, and this is too big to fit through that. So I'd have to cut off this connector to get it on there, and that seemed like more effort than it was probably worth. Not many people mentioned putting on 2 torque arms. They said 1 was plenty. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. If I have troubles, then I'll readjust my plans in the future. But for now, that's what we're going to do. So then the only other change that had to be made was I had to install, so this is, it's just an on-off switch with a readout of, I think, how fast you're going and how much battery power is left and how hard you're pushing the motor and that kind of thing. And just a grip throttle, so that's all the way open and that's closed. So not a terribly huge twist, but so that makes the motor go, assuming it's all plugged in and wired up and powered. And this brake came with it. It's not attached. These are 2 separate entities. But this brake has this. It's a switch. It's got it indicates to the motor controller that the brake has been depressed. So for one thing, that could light up some taillights or something, but like brake lights. But in addition, and more specifically, it shuts off the motor, so that if you're for whatever reason the motor is still spinning and you're trying to stop, if you pull the brake and it's wired up correctly, then it'll shut the motor off, regardless of what else is going on. So, but this this bike came with a shifter brake combo pair. So just like this one, there was one on the right and had the brake handle and the shifter integrated. That, obviously is interfered with by this brake, and I was having trouble getting the shift click clearances to work even if I removed this assembly. So I just left the right-hand side is going to be motor only, and the left-hand side is for mechanical. And so the simplest solution that I could think of was to leave the existing one as is, or basically as is. I clipped the ends of the shifter levers so that the clearance would work, and then I had to scoot this guy out just a little. But this is just a regular Shimano grip shift. But you might notice that the numbers are upside down and the wording from the thing. But anyway, so the seven position grip shift. Well, the 7 position shifters are traditionally, at least in the United States, on the right hand side of the bike. So the 1, 2, 3 front gears are left side, and the 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever you have are on the right hand side, controlled on the right hand side. I couldn't find a grip shift that had the 7-speed and left hand oriented. They probably exist, but I couldn't find one easily. So I just bought this one and then installed it upside down. So the numbers are upside down, but that's not an issue. Obviously, the the shift is also backwards, but I kind of like this better, honestly, because, well, like in a motorcycle, or in this case, the motor e-bike, when you twist toward yourself, that makes you go faster, right? So if you think about it, if I want to go faster on a regular bicycle, I'm going to shift up. I'm going to shift to a higher gear, and it'll make me go faster, right? Well, so this similar to twist toward me to go faster, you get the same twist toward me to pedal harder action going this way. So it's not perfectly clean. It's a little clunky looking, and reaching across, like I can reach the brake just fine if my hand is here, but getting to the shift I have to try. But and in fact, I don't know that I can push that at all without going crazy. Yeah, so I mean it'll work, but I'm gonna have to maybe reach across to push it, which is certainly not ideal. But I think that gear's not going to get a whole lot of action anyway. In the situations where I'd be shifting down to the easiest gear, for example, I'm probably going to be going up a steep hill. And in that case, well, you know what? I got a motor. So the motor will help me up the hill, and I can just pedal a little harder, on a little higher gear, a little harder pedaling, and not have trouble. So I think that won't be an issue. And in fact, if it turns out that I'm not changing that stuff at all, then maybe I'll get rid of them altogether and just have a single shifter on the left and be done for the back wheel shift. But anyway, that's my e-bike. I'm looking forward to the battery pack getting here so I can try it out. I've heard from a lot of people that e-bikes are a ton of fun, especially if you have a big motor. It can accelerate pretty good. So I'm really looking forward to giving that a try. Hopefully the stuff arrives soon and I can get it all wired up and start having some fun. Anyway, that's my e-bike. Stay tuned for updates.